then Ronaldo!
Welcome, people, to the Out of Bounds YouTube channel. I'm kind of excited because it worked this time.
The intro was hard, though. I'm not gonna lie, the intro was hard still.
Yo, I did not expect that. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah,
We got Richard, didn't it? You're moving.
yeah. He also called women in tech, but men in tech kind of thing in this case. But yeah, we are here to discuss basketball. As you can see, I am here with the regulars, Sam, Abbas, Kojo. How you guys doing?
I'm all good, bro, man. How are you, man?
Now chilling, man. Lakers in 6, like I predicted, so I can't complain too much. I mean, and you know the Kings thing is still alive. You guys called me a madman. Last time we did this talking about how can I predict the Kings, even though it's not in 6, we'll do it in 7 instead. Destiny all around the same, but because we're all conscious of time, we're gonna start off with the East, and the first series that we do have, I believe, is the Knicks versus the Heat. New York stand up and the Miami Heat. Just before we go into that matchup, what did we think of the Heat versus Bucks series?
Should we just go to the Heat fan in the bottom right corner with the?
Oh yeah,
Let him just go first. Let him open up with his Heat.
Mr. Butler believer,
Mr.
Bro,
Coach,
listen,
number one fan.
You're right. Do you know what? I'm happy that you guys set that up, but let me just say this first. Like, I still thought the Bucks would win. Like, I still believe that the Bucks were going to win the entire NBA championship. So I can admit when I'm wrong there, but we need to put some respect on playoff Jimmy Buckets. He's the best. He's the best in the East right now as a player himself. Like, I think he's the best player in the East right now. The Miami Heat just did what Miami Heat stuff do. Like I said, even though I predicted the Bucks, I said anyone who plays the Miami Heat, regardless of their seeding, it's going to be a horrible matchup. You'd rather play somebody else in the East, and this showed it. Like Coach Spoelstra is like the best coach in the league, I think personally. Jimmy Buckets did what he does. Like he came out to show. The only issue I have with the Miami Heat is, and we'll talk about it more in the series, is are they going to be too dependent on him to be the scorer and also the assist guy and stuff? And that's my only thing about burnout. But yeah, no, like I even ranted about how the playoffs can be boring because it's the best of 7 and you don't see upsets, and you saw basically a March Madness upset. So realistically, the NBA for me, like the first round delivered something I didn't expect, so I can't even complain right now. I'm sitting here kind of happy.
All I can say, I was just absolutely shocked. I didn't expect that. Literally, I was so convinced that Miami were going to lose this series. You guys remembered in our predictions, I said, for me, the Bucks win in 5. At best for the Heat, they'll probably take 2 games, isn't it? Do you know what I'm saying? But the fact they'll be able to win this series convincingly, without Tyler Hero, obviously with a broken hand in game 1, I believe. You know, Bam Adebayo being fouled out, not having his most dominant series. Victor Oladipo getting injured, I think in game 3, and now he's out. Definitely, we don't know when he's going to come back. The fact they relied on Jimmy Butler, who kept them in this series, dropping 56 and 42 in game 5 in the closeout on the road in Milwaukee, it was not easy. For me, I think you got to give Jimmy Butler a huge praise, man. I think he's one of the best player performers that we've seen probably maybe in the last 10 years. I think he's definitely in the top 5 conversation. He's definitely elevated his game come this time of the season, and you got to give Miami credit, man. The fact that they beat the Bucks. Think about it, the way in the last 4 years, they beat the Bucks twice in the playoffs, right? In the series, 4-1 in 2020 in the bubble, and they beat them again 3-6 or 4-1. They've got their number, and you got to give them credit. You got to give Exposure credit because this is an amazing achievement for the Heat. Now they've got a mouth-watering series against the Knicks, which is going to be interesting itself, and I don't think anyone can write off the Heat so easily in this series. So yeah, man, big props to Miami and Jimmy Butler because it was a huge upset.
No, like I hear it as well. I echo what everyone says in terms of what the Heat did because I don't think no one really expected that anyway. Me myself, I said, look, the Bucks would win in probably 6, innit? Obviously, Giannis going out.
Actually said 5, but yeah,
cool. There you go. You got the repeat there. I said 5. So obviously, Giannis going out. You know, the first couple of games kind of helped. Help the Heat. But for me, just seeing how Milwaukee played and some of their plays and some of decision making, I do think there's something that's probably gone on internally because they looked very off in it. And it's funny how a championship can change everything, innit? Because prior to the Bucks winning the championship, everyone's saying, Coach Bud needs to get sacked because his in-game adjustments ain't great. His in-game management, just in general, isn't great. And I think even when you look at the last shot of the game, which Milwaukee had, before that, he could have taken out a timeout to actually drop a play. And it was like they was playing hot potato. Like Giannis got the ball, passed it to Middleton, he dribbled. Then they wasn't aware of the time. Then they passed it to what's it called, Grayson Allen. And really, in that moment, in that position, in that point of time, it should have been, okay, cool. This the play. Either get the ball to Middleton so he can get to his position, which is the mid-range, hit a jumper, or if you're looking for a free, get it to what's the guy's name? The C guy. What's his name? For the Bucks. He begins with a C. The 3-point shooter guy. I forgot his name. The white guy.
Oh, Connaughton.
Connaughton. You would have drew up a play to get to Connaughton. So again, we got to look at Coach Bud. But yeah, look, kudos to Miami. Look, they've always got that Miami culture. They got that grit. Obviously, Pat Riley's there, so it makes sense. So big up to them, innit? But yeah, it was a very big upset, to be fair.
Wait, and just lastly, on the Heat, before we just move over to the other guys, is this because I've seen people have conversation about this might be the greatest first round from because I don't know, I can't say the greatest playoff performance in history because obviously it did happen in the first round and whatnot, but with what we've seen so far, is it probably the greatest stretch in the first round of players we've seen, or is there any that you think comes to mind to say that was actually better?
What about you? Go first.
Like I said, the Heat was the 8th seed, right? Just double checking they were right. Yeah. So yeah, I'd say in terms of upsets, again, it comes to what we always say about like I compared to March Madness. If a 16 seed beats a 1 seed, we always say it's like this is what we want. This is the type of things we like to see as well. So I'd put it in that bracket again because of what history is with the NBA. I can't really sit here and say definitively it's the best performance ever, etc. in the first round, but it's what I wanted. It's what I was claiming for before on our last video when I said that I'm sick of seeing the playoffs and being the 7-game series for the first round when realistically we know who's going to get through. So for me, it's probably in most recent memory anyway, in the last 10 years, I'd say the best first round performance.
Okay,
I'd concur with Bass. I feel like since I've been watching NBA for the last 7 years, I haven't seen any sort of first round series which has kind of got that much magnitude in terms of shock. And yeah, like again, if you're looking at March Madness, as NBA fans, we want to see upsets, especially in the first round. And I think it's good for the NBA, the fact that the Heat team, you got to remember, like obviously the Heat team, obviously they got star players with Jimmy Butler, but they've had a disappointing year in terms of the regular season. They finished 7th. Last season, they finished 1st. They've been very streaky this year. They've had a lot of injuries. A lot of players haven't been consistent. Doug Robinson's hardly played that much games in the regular season. He's come in, had a surprisingly good series against Milwaukee. Injuries again, which have occurred in this series as well. You also got to look at it in this way as well with Miami. The fact that they lost in the playing game to Atlanta at home when they got blown out. Let's be real, like this team, weren't expected to do much. It wasn't a good year for the couple coming to this series. This series has kind of saved the overall outlook of the season. So for me, yes, this is definitely one of the biggest shocks. I'll say definitely within the 21st century, but I wouldn't go to say it's probably the greatest upset or Jimmy Butler had the greatest, postseason performance. It's nowhere up there, but you got to give him praise and credit, and I think we now take him seriously. I think we expect many big things coming from Jimmy Butler.
Yeah. I mean, just before we move on, because someone mentioned on the Twitch comment about how respect to the Bucks because they still fall without their stars and stuff. And I think one thing about the NBA is there are obviously you get upsets, but the best team always wins in a 7-game series. And even though I think obviously Giannis didn't play for the 2 games or 3 games or what it was, I still think even the 2 games that he did play, they lost both of them. And they had double-digit leads in the fourth quarter for the both games that he did play. So it's one of those
actually 3 games. 3.
Yeah, but the first one's 11 minutes. I won't really count that. But in all, I'm just saying that the games that he did play, he didn't show me enough to say that if he was fit throughout the whole series, that it would have changed. But just moving
Can I say something with Giannis?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, before we move into the next topic, we'll be honest. I liked what he said in his presser about, you know, would you regard this season as a failure and overall become failure? And I agree with what he's saying.
Yes, man.
Sports is, you know, obviously there's no real failure in sports. It's all about journey. It's all about, you know, climbing. But if we're being real here, like, I respect it. It was very nice.
It's true what he said though. It's not BS though. But go on, Kojo.
No, it's not BS. I agree with it. Like, it's very sentimental, and I respect him because, you know, it's very true, and I think it's very motivational, and I agree with what he said. But if we're looking at in this specific series, this is a failure for the Milwaukee Bucks. Yep. You were the number 1 seed in the East. You had the best record in all of basketball. You had a healthier team than the Miami Heat. You lost 2 games at home. Yeah, Giannis involved in the majority of the series. Yes, he got hurt in game 1, you know, within 10 minutes. Yeah, but you had it for the majority of the series. The fact that you are a championship team, you won it 2 years ago. Do you know what I'm saying? You have the same coach. Do you know what I'm saying? You're a championship aspiration team and you lost in the first round in the manner of 4-1, a gentleman's sweep to Miami. No matter what we say was respectful, and it's true to a certain extent, but we have to be very real here. This is a failure of a season for Milwaukee Bucks.
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, Kojo, but this is where I have to take things into context, because when Giannis did win that first chip, there was always, not an asterisk, but there was always, if KD's foot was just behind the arc, it would have been a different story. So yes, they won the chip, but there were certain parameters that you knew that if KD had his full strength team, they wouldn't have won it. So yes, we can go back to them winning the chip, which is okay, cool, they've won it. But we just knew maybe Milwaukee wasn't necessarily that team from what we saw last year. When we saw, okay, cool, Middleton was out and then Giannis had to step up, he wasn't able to step up in how we expect him to step up. When I've always said, cool, Giannis is a great player, but he's not the player that you want the ball in his hands in the last two minutes of the game, the clutch minutes. So what he said is very true. Like, it isn't a failure, because the great analogy, which people always forget, and when it comes to saying who's the GOAT, whether LeBron or MJ, people always forget to use this narrative. Cool, MJ played 16 seasons in the league and got to 6 finals. So the other years, were they failures? But then when we exactly, but when we talk about LeBron, everyone says, well, he got to 10 finals, but you know, he's lost 6. But he's played.
I still regard that as failure.
Pardon?
I still regard LeBron's success as a failure, especially the 2011 season.
You can't say they're failure because you can't say they're failures because one, only one person's going to win it, and two, he was against a team such as Golden State that was going to blow everyone out of the park.
Anyway. No, but I'm talking about 2011 though. I'm speaking about 2011.
No, but what I'm saying is, but the only thing I would say, just last thing on this, the thing I would say is the kind of expectations, because going up against Golden State and then going up against Miami are kind of different. You can obviously say finals and this and that, but it's like one of those things. And I think someone joked about it and said that, oh, is it better because Giannis didn't reach the finals and lost there because now he doesn't have that final loss on his record? And everyone is talking about what Giannis has accomplished, and people are talking about he can make a run to get into the top 10, top 5, and people are saying he's undoubtedly the best player in the league. So when you have that kind of expectation, every year does kind of turn into championship or vastly.
But we know Giannis wasn't 100% fit anyway, so you could see that last game.
Man, I'm sorry, you're missing 13 free throws as well. Like you're up.
There was a reason why he was running from the grind. Mentally, he wasn't there.
No, but I'm saying he was playing.
He was 20 out of 21 or whatever it was.
He was playing when, what's it called? They were up by double digits in both quarters of that game.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I've never been a big fan of Coach Bud anyway. But if in that situation, that scenario, you will coach your team how to get through that game where you're 10 points up, 20 points up, whatever the margin is. But at the end of the day, yes, it's a failure they lost, but there's always a bigger picture. Like I don't know if anyone had Milwaukee winning the title anyway, but cool, you move on, man.
I did, but that's not the hero there. Okay, so we've got the Knicks versus the Heat series coming. Obviously, the Knicks did beat the Cavs, which I don't know if that was much of a surprise. It wasn't. I don't think it was a surprise. I think it being done in 5 was the surprise for me, especially when Julius Randle was disgracing himself out there, especially for game 4 and 5. So the Knicks have pulled it off. New York stand up, and we've got the Heat versus which I don't think everyone's talking about Cavs and Bucks, but it is what it is. What are we saying for that series? How do you guys see that going?
So this is what I'll say about this series, especially with the first 2 games. I'm going to call it first quarter shutdown. So what I mean by that is because they're in the Garden, that crowd's going to be high, and the players are going to play to the crowd. So what the Heat need to do is basically take the crowd out of the game and win the first quarter. And even though the first quarter is not the be all end all when it comes to basketball, if you can shut them down to a point where you establish some form of 8 to 10 point lead, they're playing on the catch up. The crowd will get a bit more nervous, and then you can slowly take control of the game itself. I think that's something the Miami Heat need to do. The other thing will be how much of a factor will this, what I call the Jimmy Butler burnout? Is he going to be a full James Harden type of thing where we see it constantly, where he can, in his career, a lot of people allude to how he chokes, but a lot of people don't allude to the fact that he's basically got the ball, God knows how many possessions per 100 in a game, and how much of that is going to be a factor for Butler. And on the flip side, with the Knicks, we saw Jalen Brunson have a really good series. How much is that going to? How much of that can he replicate here? What's the bench production going to be like? I think that's also going to be a key as well, because for both teams, but especially I think more Miami, someone needs to produce outside of him. And like we mentioned, Tyler Hero not being there, who's going to be the next guy to step up and give you a healthy level of scoring?
Yeah.
I kind of get where you're coming from. Sam, could you answer the question? Do you think Randall will find his form this series?
I don't know, because going based off how both of these teams are, especially the Knicks with Coach Tibbs, I believe it's probably going to be a very defensive game. It's probably going to go back to like late 80s, early 90s basketball. And I don't think it's going to be very high scoring. And if we go via defense, it's going to be a great defensive game because you got Coach Spo, who's a great defensive coach as well as Coach Tibbs. But with Randall, I'm not too sure because he's very streaky. We've seen him where he's put up numbers and he looks like he should be an all-star. And then we see him put up numbers and he looks smelly. He doesn't know. It looks like he doesn't know what he's doing on the court. So can he find his form? I think in this big game, he might, because I think he might, play off the crowd's energy and whatnot. So hopefully he does get a big game, but it's not something I can guarantee. But I think the crowd, especially in the Garden, will have a big effect. And like, there's an opportunity for the Knicks to get to a conference final in ages. I think from the early 90s with Ewing. So I think this is a potential where they can get to the final. They're gonna have home court advantage because of the higher seed. So it should be interesting. And the NBA would want the Knicks in the final. So I'll probably go with the Knicks to win.
A question I want to ask is because I don't know if this is something or nothing, but you can see when Game 4 was happening, when I think the Knicks dismantled the Cavs towards clutch time in the fourth quarter, and they showed a picture of Julius Randle, and he didn't seem happy that he was on the bench while his teammates were going off. Do you think mentally that would do anything to him that would be like, because it looks like a thing they can do without him, and especially RJ Barrett seems to be switching shots from anywhere that isn't the 3-point line. You talk about Brunson, Josh Hart, he's playing big as well. Robinson, he's getting rebounds and all that kind of stuff. So if Randall isn't going to give you that scoring production, especially from like the perimeter, he seems more like a liability at the moment, if anything. And that's just my worry with them. Just speaking, going back to the Miami Heat, because obviously the Bucks are different, and everyone thought the Bucks are obviously best defensive team with Lopez and whatnot. Lopez, Giannis, Middleton, Drew Holiday, and all that kind of stuff. Do you think Miami might have an issue with playing down to the competition by any chance? Because anyway you want to slice it, the Knicks are a worse team than the Bucks, or is it?
I think Miami are smart. I think they know it's going to be a very tough series. For a team like you said, which took out a very talented Cleveland team. In fact, I think logically you would kind of give them respect and take them seriously. The Knicks play very physical basketball, which I like, man. Which something which Sam said, which I agree. Like, it's going to be a very defensive series, which is great. And I like games like that personally. I like series like that where it's tight, it's defensive. it's
Yeah.
it's close. I'm not a fan of obviously unless it's the Lakers. I'm not a fan of blowout games like that. Personally, yeah, because I got better things to be doing, bro. Like if I'm up 2 a.m. seeing blowout games, I could be sleeping. Do you know what I'm saying? So personally, I like games tight and close. So I think Miami will be aware of that, and I think they'll do everything they can to kind of have the defensive matchups in place and do their best to negate the likes of Bronson, RJ Barrett, even the role players quickly and whatnot. So yeah, I think it'll be a tight series. I personally think it will go the distance, in my opinion. Well, I hope it does, because I'm not going to rule out Miami for what I saw. I think they're definitely capable of giving it a series. If you want me to say my prediction now, I could, but
let's go predictions. Let's go predictions.
So I'm going to go. I like Miami a lot, yeah, and I think they're going to push it to a great 7. You know what I'm saying? I hope they do it, but I'm going with the Knicks to win in 7.
Interesting. Abbas?
Oh, you guys already know. I can't doubt coach again. That's impossible. I'm taking Miami to go all the way. Forget about this series. The Heat are winning. Give me 6.
6. Why do you go 4?
Actually, do you know what? No, give me 5. Give me Heat in 5.
I pushed them. Good.
Give me Heat in 5. Give me Heat in 5.
Sam?
It's a difficult one, man, because obviously if you go by, the best player on the court is going to be Jimmy Butler. So you would go with the Heat, but then again, are they going to be too reliant on him? So is he going to tire out? And then you got the dynamics, Coach Tibbs and Jimmy, at Chicago and also at the Timberwolves. So they got that relationship there. Is it going to be a thing where I want to shout my old coach, or is it a thing where coach is going to say, look, I'm going to show you, I know how to stop you because I've coached you on numerous occasions. But within the NBA, you always have to go with the home court advantage most of the time. So I'll probably say the Knicks in 7.
Knicks in 7. And as for me, I mean, as much as I love saying New York stand up, I do think New York will sit down after the series, and I will go with the Heat in 6. Moving on to the other series, which is now the one to watch now. Philly versus the Celtics. As Embiid said like a few years ago, this ain't no rivalry because they keep whooping our ass. At the same time, 76ers are still here. You still got Harden, who led the league in assists. You've got Embiid, who led the league in scoring, who could potentially win MVP and all sorts. And even though the rest might be too long, they've been chilling for like nearly a week now, whereas in the Celtics are still being in battle with the Hawks. I'm not really going to talk about the Philly Nets series because I think that was just a sweep and it's been so long no one cares about it anymore. But did you see any vulnerability with the Celtics in the Hawks series? I'll start with you, Abbas Young.
Yeah, 100%. Like I always said this, I don't really rate the Boston Celtics as highly as everybody else does, and it kind of showed. They gave up leads when it came to it, and when it came to that closeout game, in game 5 they gave up a big lead there. I look at the Boston Celtics. I'm like, you know what? Like, yes, everyone looks at them as a two-way hit as well as having good players around them. But you can shoot this team out. Like, you can actually shoot this team out of the building in some capacity. And the Hawks realistically could have taken this to 7. What I like about the Celtics is there's that 1-2 element of it, and you can still look at Jason Tatum and probably say he's still the best player on the court. But with that being said, like, yeah, there is vulnerability. Like, for example, the fact that they gave up multiple leads throughout the series, the fact that this could easily have been 7 games, and we'd be sitting here talking about them playing a 7th game tonight or tomorrow is a big thing. So, yeah, there are vulnerabilities with this particular team, and it's not as good as what people make it seem to be.
All right, so because obviously they've lost the coach with Udoka last year, and they've got in his name just escaped my mind, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But obviously they've got a new coach. Do you think they're better than last year or they're worse than last year?
I think last season, where did they finish in the regular season?
Second.
And this is
I remember they finished second when they swept KD.
Yeah,
Kyrie.
so
Yeah.
the regular was kind of the same. I feel like defensively they're not as proficient as they were last year, according to what I've seen of them. I don't know if any of you agree with me, but I don't think they're as proficient as they were defensively last year. I think what we spoke about Boston Celtics, what we were raving about is how great they were defensively and how they're such a great defensive lockdown team, and they're going to cause so many teams problems. And they had a high deficiency rating, I think the best in the league actually for the last 5 months, even in the postseason as well last season. So I don't think they're as proficient defensively. I think they've gone better offensively. I think they're still an offensive team, especially from the 3-point range. And they're still got the same team practically. You know, they've still got good role players. They've still got, you know, Peyton Pritchard, you know, Grant Williams, Robert Williams. You know, they've still got a good collective. Obviously, Joe Mazzulla hasn't done anything wrong. Hasn't really, you know, hampered the team. He's coming and the team is still relatively good. I agree with Abbas. I don't. Well, my opinions on the Celtics are just about biasness, anyways. But look, I was a bit surprised they won in 6. I thought they were going to sweep the Atlanta Hawks. So I'll be totally real with you. I didn't think Atlanta would get any game. So the fact that they got taken 6, credit to Atlanta, they fought hard. Shout out Trae Young. But I think overall, this Celtics team are probably gonna. Hey, pay me to say this, but I think they will probably get out of the East. Yeah, I do think they will take this series against Philadelphia, you know, probably in 6.
Okay, so just quickly on Philly, because I don't know, there's some every time I watch them, there just always feels like there is that something missing. Because even when James Harden had that first game where you hear a bunch of threes, he's overall, like, obviously you want to start looking about true shooter percentage and effective shooter percentage. That was probably high because you're bombing threes. But in terms of like his actual field goal percentage, wasn't that high. It was still under 40%, and they were able to double team Embiid to the point where like he's having to turn into a passer like what Jokic is, but that's not really his game. And Tobias Harris is always hit and miss for me. Like whenever I watch them, it's like there's just something missing. Like this, I don't know if I'm the only one that feels that way, or
I agree.
I think a lot of people do, because with Harden, you don't know what type of Harden you're going to get, and we've seen him be flaky in these crunch series. So that's just where the issue is. And if you're just relying on Embiid, who's just a big man, that he can do a multitude of different things, but essentially just a big man. Then you got Maxey, which is, again, he's a good player, but very streaky as well. And then you got Tobias Harris, which you don't know what you're getting with him in it. He's on a max contract, but he's not really a max player. You know what I mean? And with me, similar to like what Abbas said, I always go, if you got 2 combo guards at the back that can get you 30, I'm always gonna go with that team, because I know they can make different shots, and they're also playmakers. And I think Abbas said a few things, but I said my mindset is don't kind of look too much at that, because we've seen this season with the Celtics. They've always played down to competition, innit? When they're playing lower ranked opponents, they don't step up. But when they're playing guys that are at their level, they step up. I've seen them lose to a team like the Spurs on a Monday, and then on a back-to-back they play, or on a day off, and then they play on a Wednesday, they play a top seed, and they're competing and they win. So I think this series is going to be very different. With Coach Udoma and a new coach, it's basically a plug and play. He already knows the system, he already knows the team. So I don't think there's too much of a drop-off. Kojo was saying defensively, that could be right. But remember, at the halfway point of the season, last season, with Coach Udoma, the Celtics weren't looking too great. They just went on a run, and that's when they kind of stretched away from everyone else in the division, really, in terms of them being the favourites. But I do see the Celtics stepping up. And obviously, Jason Tatum, that's my guy. I think he's going to ball out again. And then when you got Jaylen Brown as your Robin, and then you got Smart, and then you got Brogdon coming off the bench, and then you got Robinson, you got Al Horford, the OG. You start reeling off names, and you think, okay, cool. If they've got a good game plan in play, then they should beat the Sixers. As much as I want to see Joel do good, he's just always in the wrong position as a seed to meet the wrong matchup, innit? Do you know what I mean?
So, okay, before I give prediction, because even though I kind of feel like I know where everyone's going to swing, how damaging would this be for Embiid? I don't know if he really has a legacy like that yet, if he doesn't make it to the conference finals this year, because, I mean, it's every single time you just can't be getting conference semis and you start saying you're the best player in the league. And he said it when he drops like 40 points on Jokic that he's due a big playoff push. So, like, it's about time that all your age mates are doing it. When are you
Nah.
gonna do it? Do they have
So-
two heads? Like,
So this is the thing. It's not going to be as damaging for him because if he still wins that MVP, he wins his season award that he wants. So he gets something for his play for the season. Like I said, the only two people, unfortunately, becomes damaging to is Doc Rivers and James Harden. They're the
Fact.
only two people you can look at because James, for once, he's not the A guy. So what that means is everything is not about you. So you should now we've given you the benefit of the doubt where you've tired out. Now you're not tiring out because nothing is about you. It's about Joel Embiid as the number one guy. So again, shouldn't really be issues for his production to produce to a second tier or the partner in crime type of production. And then when it comes to Doc Rivers, I've already ranted about him anyway. Like you're playing now the one team that you build your career around. Basically, you won your championship against them. Go out against them. Show to everybody why you're still that guy, and don't have no Boston hangover, no Boston love. They're the only two people to look at. The only reason Embiid might get a bit of slack is if the guys who are running for MVP alongside him go further. So if they do, then it's like, yo, well, Giannis obviously can't do.
That's what to say. Yeah.
But over in Denver, if they go and somehow come out of the West, then it's like, yo, we might have given it to the wrong guy type of thing. That's the only type of thing he could get. But again, if he wins the MVP, his season's been complete anyway.
Yeah, I agree with Abbas. Sorry, I agree with Abbas with that statement regarding Embiid. If he does win MVP, it doesn't really affect him. But where it will affect him is next season. If they're not a 1 seed and they're not getting to the conference final as being the reigning defending MVP, then people will have question marks about him because, like you said, it can't be since you've been playing and being a regular starter for that team. It's just been Eastern Conference semis or bust. Like it needs to start transitioning to conference finals or bust.
Yeah. All right. With that being said, predictions. What are we going with?
Celtics. I hope Freddie can pull this one out, and I'm praying they do. I want him to do this, but I gotta be real here. Celtics in 6.
Hear it.
What were you, Sam?
Same as Kojo. I think
Celtics in 6. Abbas?
I got Philly. I don't know how many games yet, but I'm taking Philly. I'm taking the dog.
You're taking Philly. You know what? I really, really, really want to be on the Abbas side here, but as I said, it's just I just can't do it. I feel like Celtic might have too much for them, and as you said, they've got two dynamic backcourt scorers, or two dynamic win scorers, I should say, and I don't feel like, especially scoring-wise, James Harden will be able to match it.
Yeah.
And when you start doubling Embiid and Harden can't match, you're going to start relying on Maxey and Harris and those guys, and I'm not believing in them. But I'm definitely picking Celtics, but I'm going to say Celtics in 7. I'm going to give Philly that respect. I'd say 7, but I wouldn't be surprised if it ends in 6. So with that being said, that's our East predictions. Also, I'm live streaming it, so I won't be able to put the table up, but hopefully you guys listen properly. You'll know what everyone's predictions are. Over to the West, we're kicking off with Denver versus the Suns. Again, I'm not really sure if there's much to talk about with the Denver and Minnesota series apart from Karl Anthony Towns was embarrassing himself again on the big stage, and if not for Anthony Edwards, they would have gone swept. But I said there's not too much I can say on that series. Does anybody have anything to say? Should we move over to the Suns and Clippers?
Let's just move over
Let's
to
move over.
Yeah.
Clippers.
Suns.
That one, you got to talk about Russell Westbrook, so I want you to kind of give your little monologue.
Whoa. This is
Your monologue.
Outbound's YouTube. This is Outbound's YouTube, not Westbrook YouTube. But if you guys wanted me to do it, I will.
Because for me, I got to give respect to Russell Westbrook.
No,
Again, I'm not one of those
respects
Lakers fans who berate him, innit? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not one of those Lakers fans. I have respect for him. Obviously, I'm happy that we got rid of him because it wasn't working out, but I respect him as a player.
Yeah.
I know you're a big fan, and he played well this series, so
100%.
I feel like you should give him some love, man. Do you know what I'm saying, innit?
Yeah, I think what the bigger story is for me because, and I will speak about Westbrook as well. But the thing is, the Suns were kind of a lot of people's favorites for this playoffs, and after the series, I am kind of less confident in the Suns. Now, just quick about Westbrook in terms of he comes into a team to be the third option, and I think you've got Paul George and Kawhi who don't really need the ball, and you can let Russ do the playmaking, and he's going to be able to score because the lane is wide open. But I think to be able to be the first option and turn back the years, I think a lot of people talk about how two things: how Westbrook hasn't been out the first. He's only been out once without KD, and obviously you check his field goal percentage where he normally goes under 40%. I think what with at the stage Westbrook is in his career, I think since 2016, this probably is his third best playoff that he's produced since then. I think it was better than what he did at Houston. It was better than 2019, better than 2020. And I think to be able to drop back to back 35, 37, and all the games against the Suns, even though it looks like a gentleman's sweep, all the games against the Suns were close. And you saw when he had those big defensive plays on KD, a lot of times. And Devin Booker had to start switching off for us because Russ was the one giving him the most problems. So, as I said, like I thought my dog was done, man. I thought it was done. But Paul George wants him back. Chairman wants him back. GM wants him back. Tyloo wants him back. Everybody wants him back. But enough about Russ. With this series, as I said before, I'm less confident in the Sun. Does this series give you more confidence that the Suns can go all the way, or less confidence?
Can I let me quickly just go? I
Yeah.
think with the Suns, it's a bit of a techie one because they've got the good starting five, but their bench ain't great. So how the games play out for the Suns is that the starters need to give them a good lead. So when they go out and the bench players come on, like there's enough of a big gap. So even if it's 20 and then the bench players come on, they take it down to 10. The starters can come back and kind of elevate that. The only thing I'm worried about the Suns, from what I've seen, is defensively. They don't look great defensively. And if you always have to go into a game in a shootout, it's very difficult. And one thing I'm starting to see with the Suns now is, I wouldn't say there's a little back and forth, but we don't know whose team it is yet. Because when it gets into crunch time, who's gonna take the last shot, or who's the ball gonna be? Pardon?
It's looking like Devin Booker at the moment.
Yeah.
It's looking, but I don't think it should be. And that's where there's going to be an issue because I think Monty Williams doesn't want to kind of break the apple cart and say, look, cool, Booker, this has been your team for a minute. We've brought in KD to get us to the promised land, but you still have to take that into consideration. And I've seen in the games, Booker's having the advantage of having KD on his side because KD's getting the double team, Booker's open, and it's open with the wide free. I still think that the Suns will do it, but where we have to be careful and vigilant about them is just on the defense. They're not great defensively.
Do you know what? This goes down to, so let's be real. If the Clippers are healthy, don't even need to be healthy. If the Clippers had Kawhi, the Suns, we're not having a conversation about the Suns. The Suns are basically one injury away from the top two guys from being swept against the Nuggets, or whatever games are left over at that point. If there's an injury, they'll basically leave. I'm not a fan of the Nuggets because one, it's Denver. Like I don't like Denver as a market myself. Like there's nothing attracts me to saying I want to watch the Denver Nuggets type of thing. But with that being said, you've got a guy who could potentially win 3 MVPs in a row. Playoff Jamal Murray, if he comes back and does his thing like he did, he had a few games against the Timberwolves as well. All of a sudden, we're like, yo, this is a series. And I do think the Nuggets get overlooked because they're not the most attractive market and attractive team. And also on top of that, like I said, their superstar is a big guy. Like their superstar is a setter. So it's like, do we really care too much? And like we said, defensively, I don't think the Suns are all that as well. Yeah. I am going to go against the grain and take a team that isn't the best, that won't be able to shoot you out. Like you got someone like Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, and you're like, yo, these guys can get hot and shoot you out of a game type of thing. But I do think when it comes to the playoffs here, I think this is an experiment again that may fall a bit.
All right, so let's talk a bit about this series then, because I think, I'm going to give my prediction and just explain why, because there's no way I can actually explain it properly. I do think the Nuggets are going to win the series. As you mentioned before, I think they've gone to a point where they've become so heavily dependent on KD and Devin Booker, and I think KD has not been taken out of the Clippers series, but I do think he's been limited in terms of, like, you see sometimes in fourth quarters where he only takes 2 shots and whatnot, and Devin Booker's going to have to keep going for 40 and whatnot. And as you said, a lot of the defending that the Clippers had to do, they had to use guards on these players. I think Denver will have wings that you can use on these players, making it a lot harder for them. And they've got no answer for Jokic as well. Because Ayton is not really even a great rim protector in my eyes, anyways. And now Jokic, you can play on the perimeters where you're forcing him to come up, and you try and double Jokic. Now he's going to start passing it to open shooters, which this is a team that have been together since the beginning. So I do think they've got better chemistry. They've got better personnel to deal with the likes of KD and Devin Booker, and also, as I said before, Chris Paul. He's lucky he's on this team. The amount of open shots.
Seeing your voice and your face expression is like, Chris Paul, this guy.
Also, no, he didn't deserve this one. Chris Paul didn't deserve this. But the amount of open shots that Chris Paul is a mid-range specialist, but the amount of open threes that he's getting that he can't knock down, I do think will come back and bite them. So I do think this is a series that, and I mean, Denver are the first seed for a reason, and they've got another MVP caliber player for a reason. I mean, you can talk to me about KD and whatnot, and I think KD is elite and Booker's elite and whatnot, but let's not forget, against a fully fit Celtics team last season, KD did get swept, even though he was still putting up decent numbers. So I'm not full. I've lost a bit of confidence in the Suns team, I must say, to this. And as I'll go back to what Bas said, if Kawhi and Paul George were there, I'm not sure they'll make it out the first round. Anyways,
I don't know, because I don't put a lot of stocks in Paul George in it. But okay, cool. I hear that they got the first seed, but regular season, we know a lot of teams don't really care about it. It's all about getting into the playoffs and then having your rhythm. But
can I say one thing quickly before you go? But when I'm talking about the wings, like for example, Eric Gordon, because if Paul George and Kawhi were there, you've got you've got Russ and Powell and all these guys guarding Devin Booker and KD. Imagine if it could be Kawhi and Paul George guarding Devin Booker and KD, and you can use Russ to guard like a Chris Paul or some, like, you're spreading yourself thin.
I hear it, but Kawhi is not the same defensively as he was.
But he has more length than Russ.
Yeah, no, he's got more length, but again, he's not gonna,
Wait 1 second. Big pause. Carry on.
Oh.
big pause.
I said big pause.
The NBA's going to find him 25K for this now.
No, but I think in terms of that, he hasn't been the same defensively. And I hear it. It would have been a more competitive series. But then also, I think look, they've got Jokic, cool. But if I'm the Suns, I'm making sure I'm putting Jokic in the blender. I'm bringing him out for the pick and roll every single time. Put him in a pick and roll every single time. After that, his head's gonna be gone, and the game's gonna change, because when you got that pick and roll, whether it's CP3 and Book, or CP3 and KD, CP3 and Ayton, we know Jokic ain't great defensively. And once you start getting into someone's mind defensively, that kind of starts to affect you on the offense side. So let's see how that goes. I'll put my prediction there, because KD's my guy, and I'm just gonna say, do you know what? I might just see the Suns winning in 5. I know it sounds wild, but look at Kojo. But I think
what?
I'm telling you, I think I think the Suns are just going to step up to the opposition and say, do you know what? Let's set a benchmark, let's set a marker, and get them out there. The same way people had this with Doncic last year and Dallas, and they're going to do this. And do you know what? Golden State said, you know what? Relax. We're still the guys in this division, and gave them the gentleman's sweep. I think KD, Book, and all those guys are going to step up, because everyone's saying these stuff about Denver, saying, the Suns need to look out. Denver's the number 1 seed. They got the reigning back-to-back MVP, playoff Jamal Murray. These guys are going to say, do you know what? Let's put our statement. Let's put a marker. So I'm just going for something outlandish. I'm being a Bass for once, isn't it? So I'm going to say the Suns in 5.
one thing
Right.
I'm gonna say is before I pass it over to Kojo Abbas, the pick and roll point that you made, and I could be wrong, but I don't think it would be as effective just because I think if you're trying to get the switch on Jokic, it means you're putting Aiton onto a smaller guy. I don't believe Aiton punishes smaller guys as much as he should for someone his size. Pause again. So I don't know how effective the pick and roll would be against Denver. And as I said, they've got multiple. Like Murray is a good defender. You've still got what's the
Murray.
second important? I think he's a decent defender.
Even
No,
that, even
not
that
elite,
injury had going laterally and moving side to side. I don't think those guys don't really want to do that. But let's see.
yeah, but yeah, Kojo, what do you have to say about that outlandish comment about Sons of Five?
You could say that statement that Sam just made. You could say it's blasphemous. Absolutely. Now, Sam, you know, you're a cool guy, I respect you a lot, but we can't accept that sort of prediction here. Yeah, out of our bounds.
We can't accept it.
Now,
You know what? Yeah,
keep the receipt. Keep the
that
receipt.
comment was really out of bounds. That comment was really out of bounds.
Exactly. The name of the show started to come with something outlandish, something out of bounds. There you go. That's what we want.
You know what?
I've said it.
I spent that from my back.
Clip it.
But yeah, we'll clip it, we'll book it, we'll bookmark it, we'll come back to it at the end of the series because I won't forget this. I will definitely won't forget this because I like to put it.
Crazy.
Do you know what I'm saying?
You know what? Thank you, Sam. That's giving me the clip I'm using to post this for the Instagram. crazy stuff. With that being said, predictions. Abbas, we're gonna start with you.
I'm taking the Nuggets. I'm gonna go 7 because, but let me just say this: if Phoenix wins game 1, then I'm kind of with Sam. If Phoenix do take game 1, if Phoenix takes game 1 only, then I'm kind of with Sam on 5.
Fair enough. Kojo?
A bit more of a respectable scoreline in this series. I'm gonna go with the Nuggets to win in 7. And the reason I say this, I think home court advantage is going to be a big factor. The Nuggets have been playing great basketball at home this postseason. You know they got the highest attendance for the postseason, 21,000. I don't understand why. I don't know because in the regular season I think their maximum was 18,000. So for the postseason they've increased it. So I don't know why other franchises like the Lakers can't get up to 20,000. It doesn't make sense.
What else are other people going to do in Denver, anyways? They're not going to.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it's the only apart from the Broncos and he's out now, but yeah, I just think the home court advantage is going to be a big factor. I feel like in terms of talent, I think it's quite close in terms of the teams. You could say Denver have more depth, which I agree. Defensively, I think Denver are slightly better. But again, with the Suns, Devin Booker for me is a star player. For me, you could say he's Kobe Bryant 2.0. You got Kevin Durant, which is an elite player performer. And you can't really stop him when he's in his groove. Do you know what I'm saying? Monty Williams is a good coach, so I'm gonna give it some respect. I do feel like they will push the series. I wouldn't be surprised if they win this series though. Like I can see where Sam's going with the Suns winning, but I don't think they're in 5 though. Do you know what I'm saying? I think Denver are too good for them to be violated like that, in my opinion. Innit? Yeah. But I feel like the Nuggets should be able to win this because defensively they're better. They're a bit more complete team because they've got the depth. So with those two things, I'm gonna take the Nuggets to win in 7.
And I'm going to go with Denver in 6, just because I think if the Clippers, I feel like obviously Clippers kept the Suns in close games every single time, and I do think we're going to get similar situations here, and I do think it's one of those situations whereas in Jokic will continue to keep a cool head, and I think he will execute better in the clutch, whereas in those games that the Clippers couldn't close out, I do think Denver will be able to close out more often than not, so I'm going to go with Denver in 6. And moving over, it's not really the last matchup because we don't know. So I think the way we should do this is we should talk about who. Actually, no, fuck it. Let's talk about the Lakers first. Lakers versus Memphis is a parade in Summer City. Yeah. It's just the city is Los Angeles and not Memphis. I mean, what I think, this was an absolutely crazy series because of. I won't lie. As much as everybody is clowning him, I do think Dillon Brooks made the series a lot more entertaining than it should have been. With the whole LeBron's old, I won't respect anyone till he drops 40, poke the bear this. And even after, you could see Desmond Bain talking after they won Game 5, talking about we're definitely going to be back here for Game 7. So there seems to be a lot of like back and forth, whereas the Memphis were doing all the talking and LA were doing all the winning. And yesterday or this morning in the UK, the series was closed down in 6, where the game was pretty much over after 2.5 quarters. What do we make of LA this series? Do you think they've shown us enough to think they are World Championship contenders?
Okay, you go first, man. Yeah.
Cool. What it showed me is when you have your superstars healthy, you win. And that's the one thing you had this series with AD and LeBron. Even though there was periods where you looked at it and you said both guys didn't become the A1 player in the match, in the game itself. Like yesterday, D'Angelo Russell led the game in scoring. Then you had Rui at games that led the game in scoring as well. But what it showed is when both guys are healthy, this is a very, very solid team. There were times, however, in the series where I looked and I was like, yo, we're giving up leads. What are we doing? Why are we giving up leads? So there's that frailty there. And then there's also times where I'll go back to Game 5, for example. You get blown out at home. I mean, on the road and stuff like that to Memphis. So there's an element of frailty in the team. But overall, what the series said to me was when our superstars are healthy, we can go ahead and do stuff. And side note, Ja Morant, I think of you as having one game of value, and that was it in this entire series. And that was at LA yesterday. What were you doing? I didn't see nothing from you. Like I know there's a guy here who likes Ja. And I'm gonna let you speak on him. Because at least my guy was ice cold for most of the series, even though the game wasn't out.
Ice cold nuts.
Cody, let me jump in here after.
But yeah, like that's the one thing I can take from this series is when the superstars are healthy for the Lakers and there is some level of play around them, yeah, they can go ahead and beat anybody right now in the NBA.
Yeah, I can cover best. You know what I'm saying? The Lakers this series, yeah, it was very in some games, especially yesterday, and I'll say Game 3 was very reminiscent of the 2020 championship performances that we had in the postseason. Now, obviously, you got to take into consideration, yes, I thought Game 5 was very disappointing, but I kind of expected it because, again, we're traveling back to Memphis. The travel ain't easy. Memphis, it's an elimination game. They're at home. They've got nothing to lose in it. So I expect us to lose. Maybe not in that manner. But I think the Lakers did well, this season. I think the adjustment we made, shout out, Darwin Ham. You realize that my man, Malik Beasley, which has been struggling this series, and you obviously the first 2 games he was getting good minutes. You realize, he's struggling. He's not making his threes. Streaky. We got to cut it down. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think that was a big contribution to, just how we played. Do you know what I'm saying? You brought in, Wenyen Gabriel, do you know what I'm saying? Which I think the last 3 games he's played well. I think it's been a good contribution. And overall, I just feel like the role players, for me, I think we got to give the role players a lot of credit here. The likes of, Oscar is not role player in this series, but, in terms of, how he plays, Roy Hachimura, Wenyen Gabriel, they really stepped up. And I think if the Lakers can, get LeBron and AD, play more consistently well, because I think it's more than AD because he's a bit streaky. There's that Game 2 disappointing, Game 5 defensively he's been great, but offensively you expect more from AD. Was a no-show in Game 5. Even Game 4 actually, the one we won in overtime. He only had 12 points, and I think it was only until the 4th quarter. I think he only had 8 points. Up until the 4th quarter, he only had 8 points. That is very alarming. Do you know what I'm saying? So
yeah, I
think if the Lakers can get more offensive production on a consistent basis from AD. And the role players can, continue what they're doing. I think this Lakers team, bro. I think we can potentially. I don't want to say NBA Finals, but I think there's a real shot at the NBA Finals if Denver do beat Phoenix. In my opinion, because I feel like it does come down to matchups. If the Lakers are going to, achieve an NBA Final berth, but who we face in the second round, whether it's the Kings or the Golden State Warriors, I don't fear them. I don't fear them at all.
Smackdown.
Because I know we can. I know we can win this series. But the Lakers have got heart, and that's the thing we've got to give this team credit for. They got heart, they can fight. And shout out to the 19,000 in Staples Center, Crypto.com Arena, because the 3 games we had, they were amazing. They really got behind the team, and they proved why the Lakers fan base is the best in the world and why the purple and gold, there's nothing like it. So, yeah.
Nice.
I'm just going to say one phrase that Abbas will know. Styles make fights, innit? And I think this matchup with Memphis fitted or matched the Lakers' style, innit? I think when you're playing the Golden State, when you play either Golden State or Sacramento, because they're very similar, they're from the same school. You know, Mike Brown is from the school of Steve Kerr. It's going to be very different. There's a lot of rotations, a lot of back cuts, a lot of movements. And with this Lakers team, you're going to have your head screwed on at all times. So I think going to the second round is going to be a different type of matchup. I know in the regular season, the Lakers had Golden State's number, but in the playoffs, it's a different type of, it's a different kettle of fish, different pressure and less rotation. So I just think this matchup with Memphis suited them, but I think the second round is going to be different. And on your thing about Ja Morant, Abbas, I've been watching for a while now, and I think what he should do is transition. Don't be a point guard anymore. Just transition to a shooting guard, but take less shots, but just be more active. Because when you see him, there's a bit of that rust about him. You don't want him to have the ball all the time. You want him to get the ball and attack. Yeah. So I think keep Desmond Baines or Trey Lyles as the point guard, move Ja Morant to a shooting guard, and make him play more off ball than him handling the ball 24/7. That's what I think, because he's not a traditional PG.
Okay, before we quickly talk about the Kings and Golden State series, I just want to give prediction. What I'm going to say is I'm going to say if the Lakers was to play in Kings, how much I think who would win that series, and if the Lakers was to play Golden State, who I think win that series. So if the Lakers play the Kings, I think Lakers win it in 5, and if Lakers play the Kings, I think that's Lakers in 5. If Lakers play Golden State, I think it will be Lakers in 7.
Yeah. Again, just to kind of echo what Sam said. Again, the Kings and Warriors are from the same school. They play a very kind of similar brand of basketball. You know, they push the ball at quite a high pace, a lot of back cuts, a lot of good ball movement. The off the ball movement is very, very high rate as well. There's a lot of movement there. So the Lakers will need to kind of be on board and kind of keep up with the switches and whatnot. So I think it will be a tougher series than Memphis. Again, if the Lakers face the Kings, I'm going to go Lakers winning 6. I think Lakers, because in my opinion, I just think the Kings have got this raw roughness about them, and I feel like they can just take it to anyone. So if the Lakers face the Warriors now, I'm gonna agree with what Rich said. I think the Lakers will win in 7. So yeah.
Yo, so if I'm being objective and I'm being fair, the Lakers play the Kings win. The Kings beat the Lakers. Because I've got to head off soon, but I'll talk on Kings and the Golden State Warriors before I dip. If the Lakers play the Warriors, the Lakers win in 6. But if they play the Kings win.
I had it the other way around. I had, if they face the Kings, the Lakers in 6. Just because I think it's growing pains, isn't it? The Kings are young, they're new to this, isn't it? So I think the Lakers will just use their experience and knowledge, and having LeBron there to slow everything down, take the ball out of De'Aaron Fox's hands. I think they'll use experience. But when it comes to the Golden State Warriors, both of them are my team, innit? But
which is outrageous in itself. But okay,
it's gonna, either team will win in 7. I can't say who can win, but if I just go based on, if you're gonna have Clay on form, Steph on form, Paul on form, Wiggins on form, and then you got Looney and you got Draymond there, you're gonna side with Golden State winning in 7. And Golden State will have home court advantage. But you can never write off the king. You know what I'm saying? LeBron, he's had Golden State's number in the regular season for the past couple of years. So I would say either team will win in 7.
Okay, just before let's just talk about the Kings and Golden State game 7, because obviously everyone here predicted this series was going to end in 6. You guys said Golden State in 6. I said the Kings in 6. But it has gone to game 7, whereas I did think obviously when Harrison Barnes missed that shot, I did think it was slightly over for the Kings, because first of all, there was no way the Kings were going 3-0 up against Golden State. But I did think they had to win the second, which they didn't. But big credit to them. They've come back. I mean, Game 6 play is a myth. It doesn't exist. The pool party is empty right now. Like there's nobody's attending at the moment. Like it's dried up. And so, as I said, who do you guys think is gonna win Game 7?
People, short and sweet, Golden State. Steph's gonna step up. We've seen them do it last year. They went to TD Garden and won a chip there. So I'm going to go with experience and been in these situations before. So Steph's gonna show up. He could probably go 0 in the first 2 quarters, and then the second half go for 33 and win. So I'm going with Steph, man. Chef Curry.
Sacramento. Like, if you want to clip this up. The Golden State Warriors are overrated. 100%. They should not even be in this series. If there wasn't an element of naivety from the Sacramento Kings, I believe it was Game 4. They should have won that game as well, where they had the technical and Steph basically gave that away. But I said this, and I'm fair to it. Steve Kerr gets away with not getting any blame because he challenged that screen, and that was an offensive foul. And he basically lost the timeout, and I don't think Steph and the guys knew that. Sacramento should have won that game. Game 5, it is what it is. They came back, won Game 6, where you meant to close out, and now you play at home, Game 7. Your first playoff Game 7 in a long, long time. That crowd's going to be up for it. And for that reason, I'm taking Sacramento to beat the Golden State Warriors.
Interesting points. You made the best. Look, I won't be surprised if Sacramento win Game 7 and advance to the conference finals. I won't be surprised, and I won't be surprised if the Golden State win this. Now, to touch on what Sam said with the Golden State and why he has confidence in for them to win Game 7, it's a bit of a tricky one still. I'll be real, because this team have been very shocking on the road, and obviously they won Game 5, which was a good win, but they lost the first 2 games on the road at Sacramento, and just based on their form on the road this season, I don't know if they're going to win another game at Sacramento. Sacramento have been amazing this season on the road and at home. They've been better on the road, but they're a very good home team as well. And I don't know if they can be able to win a second game in the Golden One Center with the pressure that's on the Warriors, because they're rattled for me. And I was very surprised today when watching that game. At 4 o'clock in the morning and see it, and it was very, very alarming that they lost by 19 points at home in a closeout game. That is not normal, and I feel like for me, the shift could be changing with the Golden State Warriors. I think it's very likely that the Sacramento Kings do win this game. So I'm leaning more towards look. I want Golden State to win because I like Golden State. I want the Golden State against Lakers. I think it'll be good for basketball. Yeah. But right now, I think the Kings have got their number, because this is a game you had to win. You can't go back to Game 7 with a team who's very good at home and you struggle on the road all season, and they won the first 2 games at their crib. It's a bit of a sticky one, so I'm going to lean more to Sacramento winning Game 7. So, Rich, Sacramento winning this.
And as Kojo said, he said he wants Golden State to win because he likes Golden State. I want Golden State to win because I don't like Golden State. So I want LeBron and the Lakers to be the ones to knock them out instead. Saying that, I'm going to stick with my Kings prediction that I originally started with. We're getting those boys out of there early, and I'm going to go with the Kings to win Game 7, which means I then later believe Lakers will win this in 5. But yeah, I mean, thank you guys for joining me. As you can see, all their social media tags, I think that's for Twitter anyways, Kojo, Sam, and Abbas. And as for me, as you can see, scrolling on the bottom, because I realized that I could do that now. Men in Tech. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. Gonna put this out on YouTube, not just live. And follow all my social media platforms on OuterBounds_UK. And we'll be back with more playoff content when the conference semis is done. And also check out the TikTok on YouTube, because we cover football and Formula 1 there as well. So if anyone is interested in that, then check it out. But until next time, thank you guys for joining us, and safe.